What's up, grinders? Welcome back to the channel. See, today I've got a little bit of a fun investigation for you all. We're going to be checking out Gabriela Mendez, or better known as Gabriela Poliglota. Now, if that name seems rather familiar to you all, it should, because previously we've actually investigated someone called Gabriel Poliglota. Not Gabriela, Gabriel Poliglota. That's right, there is two polyglots out of Brazil who literally share the same name. Now, if you haven't seen this video before about Gabriel Poliglota, highly recommend you go see it. He speaks at least 6 languages at a B2 level, plus a bunch more, so he's a legit polyglot. And now we're going to check out his evil twin sister. I don't know if she's evil, I'm just like saying, you know, her twin sister, they're not related, okay guys? It's just they share the goddamn same name. This video is a meme at this point. We've got Gabriela Poliglota versus Gabriel Poliglota. Who is the ultimate polyglot? Who shall survive? Type of thing. So this is why we're checking out this channel, because most of you guys probably never heard of her in your life, because her social media presence is, I guess, not that big, especially outside of Brazil, but it is still pretty big, and she does run a language school, so I am justified in doing an investigation. Now, here's where things get fun, shall I say, because, well, you see, your old friend here, Evildea, he managed to get himself blocked by Gabriela Poliglota. Yep, that's right. This is Instagram. Sorry, this page isn't available. Now, at first when I saw this, I was like, huh? What's going on here? Because previously I had actually I'd gone to her page. I could access it. I could leave comments and stuff, and you'll see all about that in a moment. But then at some point, and I'll point out which point, I managed to get myself blocked. And I'm pretty sure it might come down to a profile pic. But anyway, let's have a look. So this is the investigation document. You guys have seen this all before. It will be linked in the description. Basically, it covers off on all the information I cover in this video. Her claims, you know, her language school, her website, her classes. Then there's all the specific language claims, as you can see. And then, of course, most importantly, the reviews for each language by both natives and learners of those languages. And these reviewers did not see the reviews by other reviewers until literally this point right now when you're watching this video. Now, how do I know that I'm actually, blocked on Instagram? Because, well, maybe there's just something wrong with that, the browser or whatever, because it didn't say I was blocked. Well, as soon as I log out, I can see her profile. So that's the first thing. And it happens across multiple browsers and on my phone. So I'm definitely, there's something definitely happening there. And if you go look at Reddit, you can actually see if you're blocked. Try to search for their username in Instagram search. If you're blocked, you won't find anyone by that handle. Well, I guess we will just have to go do that. So let's go search, and I'm going to search her name, and I've actually searched it before and seen her without problems. And let's go right here, and Polyglotta. Yeah, she's not appearing in that list. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I've got myself blocked. Now, as I said previously, I've actually left her comments. So the first time I tried to make contact with her was via her website, through her email address. I sent her an email, stating what I do, giving her a link to my playlists, and then asking her if she would like to do reviews in her languages, because, I like to give polyglots the ability to take part in reviews. Now, some people had pointed out that an email from Evildea is equivalent to that of a death sentence in the language community. So obviously, most people are going to see that and be like, oh God, if they've ever heard of my channel. Now, I don't know if she has, but she didn't respond. Okay, let's just say that. So about 2 days later, I left her this message. Hi, Gabriela. I sent you an email a few days ago. It's regarding interview requests. I run the YouTube channel titled Evildea. Now, that comment actually disappeared really fast. Now, I don't know if that's because, it got picked up by an algorithm or something, or she managed to report it or something. So a couple of days later, I then left her one in Portuguese, as you can see right here. Do you want me to try pronounce this? Okay, guys, let's do this. Es só Evildea. Enviem e-mail para voce socialidade entrevistas. Voce. Yeah, you get the point. Okay, this ain't happening. Let's just pretend that Evildea speaks fluent Portuguese. And anyway, it's Australian Portuguese. What am I on about? So I left her that one. This comment has also disappeared, unfortunately. I don't know what happened there. So I was like, okay. Now, before I dropped the Portuguese one, I also sent her an actual message on Instagram, and the message is still here. Now, this is the point at which I think she blocked me, because if you look at that message, by God, why did it have to pick up my YouTube thumbnail? Look at that. It's like I'm staring into your soul. So if I was her and I'd never heard of this guy before, and you had that message let's just say it would be justified to block me, okay? So, yeah, I'm guessing that's the point at which I officially got blocked, because it wasn't long after I sent this actual message right here. And again, of course, if I click on the profile, the page doesn't exist. So I'm blocked. Old mate Evildea, he's not liked anymore. So you know what really annoys me about this? Like, I chose that thumbnail, obviously because it's a beautiful picture and all that, but like, because I was literally challenged by a previous hyper-active polyglot, and he was actually informed that I met his conditions. Like, look at this. Like, I'm going to do a little bit of a segue right now. This is Peter Coles. Someone actually left him a message and then, like, screenshotted this and dropped it in my Discord. I see Evildea met your 3 demands. Have you kept your side of the challenge and started interviews with people? Have they been, like, lined up yet? And then he's like, he made demands? Evildea made demands? I've never watched his videos, so I don't know. So this guy, like, I know this is not a Peter Coles video, but you guys have been pestering me for updates on Peter Coles. And again, I guess there'll be links in the description if you want to go see the Peter Coles videos. They're fun ones, by the way. Yeah, he's apparently never seen my videos, but he's raged constantly about them. So I don't know what's going on there. But as you can see, he's basically trying to dance around the topic. You can pause it and read it if you want. Okay, now, in addition to her Instagram, she also has a TikTok, which has 43k followers. And as you can see, it's pretty much similar type of stuff right here. There's nothing special about it, so I'll primarily be referring to the Instagram. Now, my assumption also is that it might not just be old mate Evildea's face for why she doesn't want to communicate, but if you have a look at the description of this video right here in Portuguese, and we translate this, it says, if you've come to point out mistakes, you're not welcome. We need to normalize misses to get it right. Who doesn't risk not snack? Not sure what the snack thing means. Maybe that's a translation issue. But maybe someone can point that one out in the comments. But anyway, I get the feeling that she's not someone who wants to, like, accept public criticism in any way of, you know, her language abilities, and I get that. Like, you know, some people, they just don't want to hear it. But if you are running a language school, which she does, and you're basically trying to attract clients, I would personally, if I was in her position, be like, okay, I made a mistake. I want to know about the mistake so I can improve upon it, type of thing. But she's apparently not open to that, which would probably fall in line with why I got blocked, because I'm literally saying I want to do interviews to determine what level you're at, which would basically involve a lot of mistakes. Okay, so for those who want to know how these investigations work, basically it works like this. We use the Common European Framework of Reference. It is a system by which we can measure someone's ability, or basically someone's ability to utilize a language. Now, for those who are new to it, A1 is basically your entry level into the language. You know the pronunciation, some basic questions and answers, you know, some stock standard sentences. You've basically hard-coded, memorized everything at this point. Now, when people talk about fluency, they generally mean a B2+, which is an upper intermediate. And then when you talk about native speaker like level, like ability to use a language, that is generally around C1+, okay? Now, this does not take into account accents. We do not take accents into account when we're measuring someone's language ability, unless the accent is so bad that they're literally incomprehensible. Now, one thing I do want to point out, that this is not a linear graph. There's very big differences between specific levels, as you can see right here. Okay, so I guess what we need to figure out now is what are the languages she speaks and what is the specific levels that she claims for each one of the languages. So a member of my community actually went out and asked her, they said, at what levels do you speak each one of your languages? And she says, Italian is the only one that is basic. I started a few months ago. I speak English and Spanish fluently, and also French. I even passed the DELF B2 exam. Now, here's something interesting to point out. Remember I said that most people consider B2+ to basically be fluency? So she's pointing out that she passed a B2 for French, so therefore she's considering also fluency to be B2. So this is not me just putting something upon her and saying this is her claim. No, she also looks at B2 as basically being fluency, which means the assumption is then that she speaks English, Spanish, obviously with French at a B2 level, although Italian is basic. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at her website, specifically for her school, because we're going to get a little bit more information out of this. As you can see, it says right here, you'll be fluent in a new language in 6 months, gain autonomy in English, French, and Spanish. Those are going to be our main focus languages, as they're the ones that the website focuses on. If we scroll down further, we get down to this part right here at the bottom where it says, with classes, personalized mentoring, language courses, translation services, Gabriel helps people communicate confidently in English, French, Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese. So the assumption here is because it says she helps them to communicate in these languages, including Italian, confidently, that she must be teaching them, right? And this is a little bit concerning, especially around Italian, which she herself says is basic. So I'm hoping that she's not doing, translation and all that for these languages. So we had to know. We reached out to her, basically her school, to ask for more information about, does she teach these? Now, we actually got a response back. They point at one of their teachers who's a French teacher, and they say graduated from the French university here, and again, God, Portuguese, and he was the one who taught me French. He's fantastic. You can take an experimental class free of charge whenever you want. So it's obvious now that she actually doesn't teach these, I guess, lessons at her school. She acts more as like an agent, an intermediary, like a social media, basically, presence that attracts people, and then she diverts them off to her preferred teachers, which means... Now, this is a good sign, because this means that even if her level in these languages isn't that great, it doesn't matter so much for her school because she's got actual teachers that are teaching these classes. Now, what's the level of these teachers? I don't know, but at least we can see that she's like fanning this off to people that she deems to be better than herself. Okay, so what we've done is we've taken her language claims and we've placed them on the common European framework of reference for you guys to basically see what she's claiming. Now, Portuguese, I put it as C1 level. However, she is working towards a law degree, so my assumption is that this is going to get bumped up during the investigation, but it just starts there because that's where I start everyone with a native language. Anyway, we can see that English, Spanish, and French are placed at a B2, which she claimed as fluency, and she backed up through the fact that she said she just passed her French B2, and Italian is down a basic A1. So naturally, we're going to start with Portuguese. Okay, so most of her videos are actually in Portuguese. I'm not going to bother showing content for this because it is her native language. As you can see, we've got basically one review C1, one review that's C2. Gabriela has pursued and attained a degree in law. This, combined with the fact she is a native speaker, is enough to believe she does have a C2 level in Portuguese, as judicial language is probably the hardest and most complex register in any language. And I agree with that. Realistically, if you passed a law degree, you're a C2 in that language. Now, I know this person has based their analysis on what she's publicly placed out there, which is also fine. She probably doesn't need to use C2 language on social media, when talking about languages. So realistically, I think her level is a C2. Okay, so her Portuguese has now been pushed up to a C2 level. Now let's take a look at her English.
Well, I can say that English was the first foreign language that I actually studied because I started attending to English classes at school, just like this was the same way that I attended and had my first contact with Spanish, okay? So I was... it was obligatoire since we are mixing languages here. So from the beginning, I could tell that I didn't have those barriers that people have with language. Learning and talking English was very fluid and natural for me, and I could see that this wasn't common because my colleagues, my peers, my friends, they didn't have this facility in English. It isn't what I'm trying to say, but they didn't talk with ease. Okay, so English, Spanish, French, foreign languages were not natural to them. So I could tell by that time that we're talking about 2012, okay, more than 15 years ago maybe, and that's it. By that time I could tell that I had this thing with language, but not that I believe that we have this instinct on us or that this was born with us, okay? I think that this passion was born with me, but what I'm trying to say is that everybody can learn language, okay? It doesn't take any special gifts.
all the videos I have available to me are just her talking, so I have no way of assessing her oral interaction or oral comprehension. This is true. It's basically just realistically her talking to the camera. There is a vlog where she speaks a tiny bit of English, but not that much. So they refer to the standard for B1 is to be able to fluently sustain a straightforward description of one of the variety of subjects within their field of interest, which I think she clearly makes. She gives a clear description of her experience learning English, and I have no doubt she could make other equally clear descriptions like the video where she's hiking, but for B2 the requirement is to be able to give clear detailed descriptions and presentations on a wide range of subjects related to their field of interest, expanding and supporting ideas. And then basically they say, I think there's not enough content to make a solid determination between these two, the main distinguishing factors being a variety of subjects within the field of interest versus a wide range of subjects related to their field of interest. So we realistically don't have anything beyond language learning, so she could be a B2 based on this, but then again, we can't make that determination straight up. Now, they also say the upper levels also require a certain level of clarity and systematic development. And I think I started attending to English classes at school just like this was the first way that I attended, just like this was the same way that I attended and I had my first contact with Spanish. Demonstrates that she doesn't develop her ideas systematically or clearly enough for a C1 level. And that is also justified because she is making a video that she could have reshot many times here. So depending on how many times she tried to make this specific video in English, she did struggle a little bit there. But I will also add that that video is actually part of a greater video, which includes her speaking 3 different languages before she got to English. So it's possible that they've impacted on her English. This person says, firstly, there isn't much content of her speaking freely, so I can't judge her interactive skills. That being said, her monologues point to a B2 level, in my opinion. She has an accent, but her pronunciation is clear. I don't think her content is scripted because the way she describes herself is linked in the clips, shows her searching for words. The way she tries to put sentences together seems very natural to me. I feel like I'm perhaps being a bit harsh on Gabriela in the review because from her vlog, I think she's quite talented in English and is probably her strong language, but after consulting the rubrics, my review comes down to these 2 main points. First, there's not enough content to assess her properly, especially when it comes to categories like comprehension, interacting with others. I would feel dishonest in giving her a high rating when I have no evidence of such a small sample size. The other thing that I think prevents her from being comfortably a B2 is, for example, in the pragmatic competencies, the description of the B2 is as follows. Can reformulate an idea to emphasize or explain a point, can vary formulation to what they say. She does do this in a way, but she doesn't do it in English. She will say, my classmates didn't have the faculty. Oh, I don't want to say faculty. Faculty doesn't mean that in English, but then she doesn't adjust the meaning. Similarly, she will still be explaining her course load and then say it's obligatoire, a French word. It's a consistent habit of hers. So based on that, I've knocked her spoken English slightly down to somewhere between a B1 and a B2. But I'm pretty sure written-wise, I don't have evidence of it, I'm pretty sure written-wise, though, she would definitely be a B2, maybe even possibly a bit higher, but we have no evidence of that. Additionally, we don't have her really conversing with other people, so we can't see how well she does in an active environment responding to questions that aren't about languages. So here, she's marked as somewhere between a B1 and a B2, but she's probably higher realistically. Okay, next up, Spanish.
César, mi idioma favorito es el español después del portugués, por supuesto. El portugués es mi idioma favorito porque es la lengua que yo tengo más memorias. Yo tengo muchos momentos afectivos con mi familia y con mis amigos. Por eso que yo me encanta mucho el portugués y me encanta mucho el español también porque es una lengua latina y yo creo fuertemente que nosotros brasileños debemos hablar más el español, estudiar más y olvidar el portuñol.
Okay, so here's the crazy thing. Now, I don't know if this actually means anything, but when I was watching her speak Spanish, I understood at least 50% of what she was saying. And I've done 140 hours of dreaming Spanish, so I'm assuming the language she was using was not that complex. But anyway, there was a bunch of other videos. They're all usually just short snippets. So let's see what the Spanish, oh god, I almost did that. The Spanish reviewers have got to say. Her Spanish is good for a fellow Brazilian, and I'd totally be willing to give her a B2 if we had more material of her using the language in the ways that the CEFR expects. So obviously, she sounds pretty good overall. Although she literally didn't do anything listed by the other subsections, describing experience, giving information, putting a case, public announcements, or addressing audiences in the exact way the CFR specifies, I believe the overall oral production B1 descriptor can reasonably fluently sustain a straightforward description of one or a variety of subjects within their field of interest, presenting it as basically a linear sequence of points. Fits her well. We could see her sustaining straightforward talks on language learning, Spanish language, and makeup, and I'm pretty sure she could speak fluently about other basic topics of interest. This person says, ultimately, I don't have enough info on her Spanish to give her an accurate verdict. The small amount I saw, she appeared to have a pretty decent vocabulary, which is expected since she is a Portuguese speaker. Her speaking was still pretty rough, and she has quite a noticeable accent, so I can't give the one grade any higher than a B1. Personally, I would just leave out this whole part about the accent, but I do understand the fact that, we don't have much to work off. Now, this person said, based on the material presented, Gabriel's Spanish is at best an A2 and is heavily influenced and structured around her native language, Portuguese. Why? In the video about makeup, for example, she fills in some gaps with English and French. She has no videos featuring lengthy dialogues or interactions with other Spanish speakers, so I can't rate her oral comprehension or the extent of her vocabulary. Okay, so her Spanish realistically could be anywhere between a B1 and a B2, but obviously that's helped a lot along by her Portuguese. There have been comments in there saying that's probably around an A2 level, but we just don't have enough material to really make an estimate. Now, I was tempted to just, drop Spanish completely, but because she has so few languages we're analyzing here, I left it on here and I'd said she's probably somewhere between a B1 and a B2. Next up, French.
Salut mes amis et bienvenue à notre vlog, cette fois sur le thème du voyage. Nous sommes à Morretes maintenant. Nous avons loué un chalet qui sera notre refuge dans la nature ce week-end. Voici le chalet. Alors, voici l'extérieur du chalet. Je pense qu'il y a 6 chalets ici. Et nous avons emmené Eva avec nous parce que nous savions que l'environnement serait paisible, d'accord? Paisible, c'est comme tranquille, calme. J'ai ressenti le besoin d'être dans un endroit, de me rendre dans un endroit plus calme, plus tranquille pour célébrer mon anniversaire. J'ai déjà eu beaucoup de célébrations, beaucoup de fêtes, mais oui, je suis ici pour m'éloigner, je peux dire m'éloigner de la routine intense de la vie. Voici un menu. Menu est le mot français pour kitten in English. La nature. Il y a une piscine, une salle de fête là. Je ne sais pas comment je peux dire salon de festas en français, mais je pense que c'est salle de fête. Et c'est ça.
I believe that the A2 description for this category fits best what she shows in her videos. She gives some basic descriptions of her surroundings, especially commenting on how they look, and her own routine. She also uses some basic expressions that French people often use. I believe that the vocabulary and style of phrasing she uses falls in the A range, and it being limited and repetitive. She is also able to describe her surroundings and what she's going on in the present moment. She relies on English when she doesn't know a word. Her grammar is also at an A2 in my opinion. She uses simple structures mostly correctly, but she obviously uses Portuguese as a crutch and sometimes uses Portuguese syntax. For example, skipping the personal pronouns at the start of sentences. Now, this person commenting on the same video said, there's a couple of things I've noticed while watching her stuff. That to me signals she's probably been studying or working on the French for a long time. In this video, she uses a variety of tenses and moods, specifically the conditional mood and the future simple tense, which you don't learn until you've progressed further in L2 French courses. While watching all her videos, I kept track and she uses every tense and mood that is commonly used in spoken French, which is not something a complete beginner can do in my opinion. If she's using these tenses and moods regularly, it signals to me that she's been learning French for a while and a minimum an A2, but I'd probably give her a B1 just in general. Okay, so based on that, her French is somewhere between the range of A2 to B1. Again, it comes down to lacking of content. Now we're going to look at her Italian.
Allora, ragazzi, questo è il mio primo tentativo di fare un video in italiano senza script. Allora, ciao, mi chiamo Gabriela, sono brasiliana, ho 24 anni, sono nata a Curitiba, sono poliglota. What else? Non mangio né il carne né il pesce perché sono vegetariana. Ho 2 gatti adottati, Eva e Nebula. Allora, mi piace parlare le langue francese.
Now, considering how much Italian content we had, which was very little, we actually had 5 Italian reviewers jump on this one. So as you can see across the board, it's basically A1 or pre-A1. And as this person pointed out, the only useful material so far is the Italian monologue video, so it's only possible to judge her output. She only uses basic sentences, and she struggles quite a bit to recall them. The most notable mistakes are these ones just listed here. She forgot how to pronounce lingua, then tried again after a cut. There are several English interjections and a couple of instances of random gibberish. So overall, her Italian basically stays at an A1, although it may actually be a pre-A1. So now let's take a look at this cleaned up. Okay, so here's the final outcome. So based on this, her English and Spanish could possibly count as fluent, although French is not quite there yet, and then obviously Portuguese is her native language, but she's probably a C2 level. Okay, so you're probably now looking for my final assessment. Well, realistically, she just seems like your standard polyglot, someone who's learnt a bunch of languages up to, kind of a low level of fluency, and that's basically it, and dabbling with a few others, and some of these languages are obviously related. Now, it is strange that she runs a language school, and also on top of that, there's like some crazy claims about, fluent in 6 months when she's barely at fluency in English and Spanish as it is, so why would you be making those claims? But then also, she does fan out basically her clients to actual teachers, so in this case, she seems to be just more of an agent with a social media presence who actually is interested in languages overall. So, yeah, it's just standard polyglot, I guess. Nothing too strange, nothing too crazy. Now, I know I did at the start make this a challenge between Gabriela Poliglota and Gabriel Polyglot. Obviously, guys, we shouldn't be going out there and, comparing people, but I just had to. Like, for the meme, it's fun overall, okay? Gabriel Polyglot is still a legend. He cannot be destroyed by the means of your average polyglot, basically. So he is really good at what he does. Unfortunately, this girl had no hope from the start because Gabriel Polyglot's like B2 in 6 languages, and that's more languages than she actually speaks. Wait, 1 sec. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's more languages than she actually speaks or is attempting to learn type of thing. But again, I do want to stress that it's not a competition out there. Except if you share a name with someone, then it becomes a competition. And that's pretty much it, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Now, I know you guys have been begging me to make a video on, some of the bigger names. Don't worry, guys. The next investigation is going to be a name that you've all heard. Get ready for that one.